Memory is vital to everyday life, and the brain is made up of different types of memory. Some memory is used all the time subconsciously, for example when we speak our native language. For a memory to be remembered, it must first be passed through the sensory memory. It is only held here for less than a second and is constantly being updated. Sensory memory is also known as iconic memory for sight and etheric memory for sound. Iconic memory allows our brain to perceive visual information but not to recall it. This visual information is held by the human brain for approximately 1/10 of a second, whereas etheric memory lasts around 4 seconds, allowing us to remember items read from a list. Another use of the etheric memory is to determine the direction of a sound by subconsciously calculating the time it takes for the sound to reach one ear before the other. After the sensory information is processed, it is turned either into short-term or long-term memory. Short-term memory, otherwise known as working memory, is used, for example, to remember when an appointment is, but after this thing takes place, we just discard the time and details of it unless there is a new information that needs to be stored in the short-term memory. Short-term memory allows us to function from one moment to the next, while also recalling from long-term memories. It's what sticks and connects part of an event from beginning to end. The working memory makes it possible for us to predict future events by recalling past experiences and events, but also, working memory prevents some memories from becoming coded. Otherwise, every little trivial detail would be remembered, and it would seriously affect the more important memories. Long-term potentiation, otherwise known as LTP, is a process which encodes memories. LTP is a cellular mechanism that creates synapses to strengthen their connection to one another, coding a stimulus or event. When a stimulus is received, LTP makes a path along a series of neurons. This is done so that when the action is repeated several times, the bonds will become stronger. There are more neurons involved, which will eventually create a whole system that will be able to recreate this action. Besides short-term memory, we have a long-term memory, which is the memory that holds information for as long as our lifetime, if we live without disease or injury. For example, our long-term memory may store information on what a family looks like or what our name is. Long-term memory is split into many subsections. It can be either declarative, so explicit memories which we're consciously aware of, or procedural, implicit memories that we're only subconsciously aware of. There are two types of declarative memory. There is episodic memories, which are events, and semantic memories, which are facts. Procedural memory, also known as reflexive memory, is implicit. It has an automatic quality. It's the memory of skills developed over time, which doesn't have to be consciously thought about. For example, when you play an instrument, or when you're speaking your native language. It is commonly believed that memories are stored in one place of the brain. However, this is incorrect, since memories are neither stored or encoded in one place. Different parts of the brain have different functions to do with memories. For example, the long-term memories are widely stored and distributed throughout the cortex. The hippocampus also helps to consolidate memories. Since the 1800s, traumatic amnesia has been recorded, and there has been large variation in the cases, but perhaps the most commonly understood is the cases associated with child abuse. Even though the actual account of an incident is hidden away within the person, the emotional and sensory parts of the experience stay with the person throughout their life. Also, in traumatic amnesia, any feeling associated with this traumatic experience, even though the person is unaware of them having the traumatic experience, it can trigger negative emotions, and a combination of these symptoms can cause post-traumatic stress disorder. Over the past few decades, there has been much controversy surrounding traumatic amnesia, especially around the remembrance of forgotten experience, since there is much confusion, especially when the person is visiting a psychotherapist or a therapist, to whether a memory has been constructed or influenced by the therapist, and so may be a false memory. This topic is incredibly sensitive, since it frequently involves criminal offences or family problems. But there are many scientists who are researching the accuracy of memories that have been remembered through suggestive therapy. Dissociation and repression are at the root of the two different sides of the debate around traumatic amnesia. Researchers such as Ernest Hildegard and John Killstrom believe dissociation is the cause of traumatic amnesia, and so therefore traumatic memories cannot be explicitly remembered. Many psychiatrists, including David Spiegel, believe that repression is not strong enough to hide away entire periods of traumatic experiences, but instead would only work on one isolated experience. This is also proven by the fact that the rates of people remembering one isolated traumatic experience is very high compared to those who remember a long period of time which was a traumatic experience. As understood by LTP, the more times you repeat an experience, the harder it becomes to forget. So repression would have to overcome all this repetition to hide away several traumatic experiences. There is a contrasting idea, though, that as someone experiences similar traumatic experiences more and more, therefore repeating them, the person becomes more capable at dissociating this experience from their conscious awareness through repression. Hypnosis is an example of a suggestive technique used by therapists so that their patient remembers a traumatic experience. It has brought much questioning around patients who have made claims that they have remembered a suppressed memory. The idea that memories can be falsely implanted by therapists is highlighted by a controversial treatment by two psychotherapists in the 1980s. They falsely placed memories of their patients who were suffering from obesity, which they had had for their whole life, as being thin. They thought that this would inspire the patients to lose weight and to become how they used to be. The argument around this topic is very inconclusive, and the need for research which is unbiased, so it is not affected by either side of the argument, is very much needed. But there is fragility around the topic, especially since cases surrounding traumatic amnesia often entwined with legal cases, and the people involved may be incredibly vulnerable.